Yahoo Sports Fantasy Football Live is presented by Sleep Number and by AutoTrader.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Week 7 edition of Fantasy Football Live. I'm Liz Loza, and I'm here with my favorite Sunday morning crew, Andy Behrens in Michigan, Matt Harmon in Los Angeles, Tank Williams in San Francisco, and betting analyst Minty Betts in Las Vegas. 6 weeks down, 11 more to go for fantasy managers, which we all are. Andy, who's been a bright spot for you so far this season?
Well, most of them are on bye this week. The one that comes to mind who's actually playing is Jalen Hurts. This is going to be like the one thing that I get really right, and it's carrying me through the season. Jalen Hurts so far, it's not always a clinic as a passer, right? But he is second among all quarterbacks in rushing yards behind only Lamar Jackson, and he's tied with the legendary rushing threat Sam Darnold for the most rushing scores on the season. So that is absolutely carrying me. He also has the late bye, which I really appreciate.
Matt, why don't you use this opportunity to talk up Brandon Ayuk?
Pass. I will pass on that one. Although I do have to play the guy because, Sterling Shepard's got this whole injury situation, so he's back in my life, back in my lineup. And that's the thing, though. Integrity is important, people. So when I tell you to draft somebody that doesn't work out, he's also not working out for me either. So I'm feeling the pain that all of you are feeling out there because of me.
Tank, if Matt is feeling the pain, who is bringing you joy? Let's skew positively here.
Yeah, well, of course, like Derrick Henry and Aaron Jones are bringing me joy, but if you want to pay up for guys like that, you have to take some risk on wide receivers. So I've been rolling with Deebo Samuel, Brandon Cooks, Hollywood Brown, Jamar Chase, A.J. Green. I mean, those are people like, when you first draft them and pick them up, you kind of like, But now after like 6 weeks, you're like, So it's kind of like the meme, and I've been loving it.
Minty, what team has been the most profitable for sports bettors in your mind?
Ooh, for sports bettors in my mind. You know what? I've always been riding the Bengals like every single week, but I've been live betting them, and I will do so again today. I pregame bet them. I mean, you have to pick like the ugliest teams to ride. So those have been the most profitable. We're big underdogs.
Okay, all right. Well, my bright spot has been Jalen Waddle. We've talked about how his usage has been a little head-scratching, right? Don't love the 8 yards per reception average, but the volume, I'll take 6 catches per game. All right, that's given him a nice solid floor in PPR. We'll see how many looks he draws with Devontae Parker maybe back in the lineup, but I am at least digging the matchup for him versus the Falcons this week. We still have lots of lineup decisions to make this morning because so many teams are on bye. So send your roster questions on Twitter using the AskFFL hashtag or drop a question in the chat, and we will try to answer as many as we can on the show. Plus, our own Scott Pianowski is answering questions all morning long live on Twitter. All right, 6 teams on bye. Matt already mentioned a couple of injuries, so let's turn our attention to the actives and inactives for Week 7. We got to talk about the Giants. Sterling Shepard is a true game time decision this morning, and it looks like he will not go for New York. Saquon Barkley, Kadarius Toney, and Kenny Golladay all ruled out as well. Hey, but silver linings, Darius Slayton, John Ross, and Evan Ingram, who were all listed as questionable, are active against Carolina, so there's that. Also in the NFC East, the Washington football team's Antonio Gibson is expected to play through that hairline fracture in his shin in Green Bay, though he may see a decreased workload today after being limited last week. Tennessee's Julio Jones is active today against Kansas City. He had missed some practice time this week after tweaking his hamstring last week against Buffalo. And this afternoon, the Raiders may be without tight end Darren Waller against Philadelphia. He was added to the injury report yesterday with an ankle issue, and Adam Schefter is reporting Waller, quote, doesn't feel great, but they will test the ankle in pregame. All right, that's the latest. Now, let's get to our first over-under. Matt, why don't you take it away?
Yeah, first one we're going to do here is on the big fat revenge fest coming up today. I mean, Matthew Stafford, does he really need to get revenge on the Lions? They gracefully allowed him to leave and go to a much better situation. Maybe Jared Goff needs some revenge, but I don't see him getting it. So let's talk Stafford here. Let's set the line at 3.5 passing touchdowns, and I hate to do this. I hate to be a bummer here, but it's a bummer of a week with all of these buys, so why not keep the energy bad here? I'm going to go under here because 4 passing touchdowns is an awful lot. And again, does Matthew Stafford really need to give it to the Lions that hard? They allowed him to leave after all those bad years. You know, maybe he can just keep it at 3. I think that's pretty modest. Also, I didn't really appreciate the unfairness shown to me at the beginning of the show when everyone else got to talk about their draft victories. I was going to talk about Darrell Henderson. I had to talk about Brandon Ayuk. What's up with that? I was going to talk Darrell Henderson, and he's the thing here. He's really good. I drafted a lot of him. He could score 2 touchdowns against the Lions' bad run defense. No one would be surprised about that. So maybe some touchdown sharing in the equity department is in order here. Henderson gets more. Stafford just gets 3. But what about you, Andy? What do you say here?
Well, I'll grant you the point about Stafford not really, he shouldn't be that angry. Had some good years in Detroit, obviously, and they gave him a fairly soft landing by sending him to the Rams. This is obviously a ripe situation, but it's that ripe situation that has me so excited about him. He's already done this twice already this year. His receivers are absolutely unfair. And then you look at the Detroit defense, they're allowing 9.8 yards per attempt on the season. That is the most in the league. It is terrible. I think he gets to 4 before they have to put the brakes on. I'm going to take the over.
Oof. All right, Tank, are you going to make me feel like an absolute loser for picking the under on this very exciting line here?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I'm going over. I mean, y'all say that he doesn't really have anything against Detroit. This wasn't even my talking point, but what did Detroit give him besides Calvin Johnson? I'll wait. Yeah, exactly. And he was all beat up and banged up. What? Who?
Pettigrew.
Money?
And I'm telling you, man, he's gone over this number twice already this year. And I don't even want to get in the stats. I'm gonna just put it like this. When you got a new girl and your old girl coming into the club that night, what you gonna do? Are you gonna have her going to the club looking like a bum, or you gonna put those little red pumps on to clean up your car and slide up in that thing looking hot and nice? We all know the answer. Over.
All right, well, there you go. Look at me. I'm the big loser that picks the under here. What a tough scene for me. These guys are probably right. I'm probably wrong. We'll have more over-unders coming up later in the show, but for now, let's send it over to Liz.
All right, it is time for our game-changing sleepers presented by Sleep Number. We're going deep into the player pool to find guys who could be a big surprise and help change the fate of your fantasy team. Here are 2 players to consider in Week 7. You know, I have said this before, and I'm going to say it again. The Detroit Lions are like Detroit-style pizza, the worst kind of pizza, but still pizza. There are fantasy points to be found here, even behind DeAndre Swift and TJ Hawkinson. Amon-Ra St. Brown has averaged 7.5 looks per game since the beginning of the month, and he's recorded a snap share of nearly 80% in back-to-back weeks. This week, even though the narrative is all about the revenge games, the former Trojan has a homecoming contest in Southern California. Anthony Lynn, he may not want to air it out versus the Rams, but he's gonna have to because the Lions are 16.5-point underdogs. That means another 8 to 10 targets for the rookie slot receiver, especially with Tyrell Williams and Quintez Cephas still banged up. Don't expect huge yardage totals here, right? But in PPR-friendly formats, you can flex St. Brown. From chasing receptions with St. Brown to chasing touchdowns with CJ Uzomah. I know none of us likes to do it, but this is the tight end position. Even with T. Higgins in the lineup last Sunday, Uzomah found the end zone again for his 3rd score of the season. Today he gets the Ravens, and that's a squad that's allowed the 3rd most fantasy points to opposing tight ends and let Jared Cook, dusty old Jared Cook, into the end zone a week ago. Damn. I like the offense Uzomah's attached to. I like the touchdown upside that he offers, and I love the matchup. So he is my tight end 13 for the week. Those are our game-changing sleepers presented by Sleep Number, helping NFL players gain their competitive edge by getting a good night's sleep. Ooh, I hear things are heating up at the window. Let's send it into the Sportsbook and see what's trending. Minty, let us know.
Welcome to the Sportsbook, everyone. Here are some trends, some betting trends for you guys. First up, the Packers are 3-9 against the spread. Their last 11 games as 9.5-point favorites or more. They're big favorites against Washington today. Second up, the New York Giants have hit the under in 6 straight games as home underdogs. They're home underdogs against the Panthers. And lastly, the Saints are 9-4 against the spread as road favorites. They're 4.5-point favorites in Seattle today. No big bets to report, but I will be back in a bit with my best bets for Week 7.
All right, let's get our first check-in on social media this morning and answer some roster questions. Don't forget to send your questions to the hashtag AskFFL. Our first tweet comes from this human. Oh, there it is. Michael Carter or Brandon Ayuk or Rashad Bateman. I mean, Matt, how can I not go to you with this question?
Pretty simply, you had 2 other options. You could have just not gone to me, but that's fine. I will take the question. You know, honestly, for real though, like if this had not been sort of whatever this monsoon rain wind situation's going on up there in Northern California or Mid California, whatever you people want to call it up there that Santa Clara is, I don't know. I might be tempted to go with Brandon Ayuk. Like I said, I got to do it, but in this situation with that weather going on, I'd actually probably chance Rashad Bateman here. You know, he played a healthy amount of snaps, was 3rd on the team in routes run behind Mark Andrews. Hollywood Brown got a lot of opportunities. I know it is aggressive to just throw him out there when he's, quote, unproven and it's only his 2nd NFL game. But, you know, you're attached to Lamar Jackson. I'd rather do that than being attached to Jimmy Garoppolo in a big rainy situation.
I agree with that analysis completely. Also no Sammy Watkins, so that should help at least keep the volume stable for the rookie out of Minnesota. Let's get to the second one. It is from Greg. Standard League Flex, DeAndre Swift at the Rams, Terry McLaurin, not 100% healthy at Green Bay, or Josh Jacobs versus Philadelphia this week. Andy, I believe you and I are both pretty high on Josh Jacobs, but are you willing to sit McLaurin in favor of one of these running backs?
Yeah, in a actually a rarely played format like this, right? We don't even take a lot of standard league questions. But if I'm not counting receptions here, I'm probably going to go Josh Jacobs. I'd give Jacobs the greatest chance of a multi-touchdown game here, right? We saw even with the coaching changes that Josh Jacobs remains at the top of that backfield hierarchy last week. This is not a game in which I would expect game flow to get away from the run. So I think Jacobs is in line. You know, he's healthy now. I think he's in line for 18 to 20 touches in this one. That's where I'd go.
All right, this next question is for you, Tank, and it is from Easy E. And this human wants to know, who's the better running back to start this week? J.D. McKissic, Devontae Booker, or A.J. Dillon?
Oh, wow. I mean, I think that the Carolina defense is going to try to go up and pound the Giants coming off that tough loss to Minnie. I know AJ and my man Aaron Jones are splitting carries. Man, I think for me, even though Gibson is playing, I mean, yeah, I think I got to go with J.D. McKissic. I mean, I like his usage in the pass game. When you look at that Green Bay-Washington game, I think it's going to trend that way where they're going to have to use more McKissic out the backfield a little bit in the red zone. So, yeah, I like McKissic here.
I agree with you. Let's not forget that the Washington football team are 7.5-point underdogs, so it looks like McKissic will be used while chasing points against Green Bay. This next question, it's going to be our last one, is going to go to Andy. Andy, Showglow wants to know Matt Ryan at Miami or your new bestie, Ryan Tannehill versus Kansas City.
That's right, he is my new bestie. Got some important commitments from him that we will go over later in the show. I'm actually going to go Tannehill here. Super friendly matchup, right? A high-scoring game, we assume, against Kansas City. That has been one of the worst defenses in the league against both the run and the pass. A good chance we're going to see a lot of Julio Jones this week for as long as he can go. So slight lean to Tannehill. I don't dislike Ryan. I think these are both good options, and I think they're both basically in the same tier, but a little rushing upside with Tannehill as well.
Well, there you go, Showglow. Now it is time for our first break here on Fantasy Football Live. When we come back, we'll take a look at some must-start players, and we'll check in with Austin Eckler on Eckler's Edge.
B, I want the real B.
I feel like I'm a starter. Everybody feel like I'm a starter.
If you don't know me, feel free to judge.
People always ask, will Kevin Love go back to Portland?
If I was wearing a Portland jersey, I mean, that's special. That's playing at home.
Did you talk to LeBron?
We never really talked about those battles. We moved forward from that. There's some lines that even ambassadors shouldn't cross.
And then there's the load management. How you feel about that, Dr. J?
I'm Hannah Kaiser, and this is The Bandwagon. The best way to watch baseball is with an unnecessarily masochistic level of emotional investment. Check out these dance moves. Ohtani unleashed. Aliens, fan. I don't know if they're watching. Huge fan. It was a socially distanced first pitch. He looks like a female superhero. This week on Humble Proposal, Jason Benetti, Jeff Passan, Shane Bieber. Every morning I wake up and I look at the standings and I'm like, who's out of the running? Nobody. Only the Pirates.
When I'm decorating a space, I'm constantly shopping, even on Yahoo Mail.
Oh, it's so perfect.
Finding the right piece really brings it all together.
Watch free live football. The NFL is on your phone all season long. Watch the NFL live on the Yahoo Sports mobile app.
With loads of flex decisions to be made every week, let's look at some players who've solidified their place on fantasy rosters. Finally, it's easy, presented by AutoTrader. Just like AutoTrader makes it easy to buy a car, these players are now surefire options to plug into your lineup each and every week. Matt, who's an easy start for you moving forward?
You know, I feel like if Jalen Waddle had had his 13 target, 2 touchdown kind of breakout game on the main slate and not, you know, a little weird London game last week, I feel like we'd all be in agreement that he is a guy that you got to ride the rest of the season. I mean, I know that there's some concern about his low ADOT, his low yards per reception, and like he's kind of reprising this Jarvis Landry role in the offense that frankly no one asked for an encore on that one, especially with a guy with legit speed. But his ADOT is actually around 9.1 with Tua as the starter. He's been more productive with Tua. That's kind of to be expected. Jacoby Brissett is a check down artist anyways, behind a bad offensive line. Like, obviously, I'd like it to be north of 10. I'd like it to be in the double digits, but nevertheless, like having that higher with Tua, I think gives me some confidence. And again, the target volume is there. Devontae Parker out again this week. Matchup with the Falcons. Like at some point, Jalen Waddle's going to take all of this volume and all of his speed and mix it together in for some big plays. Why not this week against the Falcons? Absolutely, I think he's a must start. And I think he's a guy that you're probably going to be playing as your wide receiver 3 or maybe even a low end 2 the rest of the way.
Oh, I love it. I need it. Tank, who's a plug-and-play guy for you?
Like, I'm going to say that Marquez Callaway, he's not an easy play every week, but he's becoming an easier play almost every week. I mean, the dude finally got off again with a couple tubs in that last game against Washington before the bye. But what I'm looking at is the schedule moving forward. He's going to have Seattle that gives up the 11th most fantasy points. They play Tampa Bay twice, and they give up the 10th most fantasy points to wide receivers. They have Tennessee, who's numero uno, Dallas, and then Miami, who are all in that top 10 range. And you also have to factor in that can't guard Mike still can't play. So as long as you have that, you know, synergy going on where they really don't have anyone to throw the ball to in New Orleans, Alvin Kamara is definitely going to be a piece of the puzzle in the run game and in the pass game. But when you're looking out wide and who the Saints have to threaten the defense with, it's going to be Marquez Callaway.
Yeah, I'm going to take a guy who's both a wide receiver and a running back. We don't get a lot of dual eligibility situations in fantasy football, but we have one with Cordero Patterson, and it's been so friendly, and it's going to continue to be friendly as we get into these very difficult bye weeks. Patterson, so far on the season, he's got 5 touchdowns. He's averaging over 7 yards per touch. He's been great. He was doing a lot of that while barely playing, while only playing about a third of the snaps for Atlanta. And then in his last time out, granted, it may have had something to do with Calvin Ridley being out, but he played north of 50% of the snaps. That was great to see. But again, in these terrible bye weeks, we're going to be riding this guy, and you can plug him in to 2 different spots. This is kind of like one of those like super all-weather, all-terrain utility vehicles that you could find on AutoTrader, right? This is somebody who, yeah, I don't know, you can take the top off, you can go 4-wheel drive, you can put the top on. Like, this is super friendly, any conditions. You can plug him into receiver, you can plug him into running back, and he's been great for us all season long. I expect him to have a huge day today against Miami in a very friendly matchup. Remember, AutoTrader has the largest selection of new and used vehicles. Shop, test drive, get your car delivered straight to your door. Visit autotrader.com today.
Thank you. Thank you, Andy. Every week, I get a chance to talk fantasy with Chargers running back Austin Eckler in Eckler's Edge. You can watch the whole show every Thursday here on Yahoo Sports. This week, we played a little makeup or breakup with some fantasy players. And with Austin off this week, we try to find a bye-week backup for one of his fantasy teams where he rosters himself. So go ahead and check this out. So let's start with the Colts quarterback, Carson Wentz. Wentz may not have like the touchdown passes of Tom Brady or the rushing touchdowns of Jalen Hurts, but he has 9 scores and just 1 pick, and he scored at least 17 fantasy points in 5 of his last 6 games. So what are you thinking? Making up or breaking up?
Yeah, I think especially for this week with a lot of buys and a lot of quarterbacks that have been putting up a lot of points. If you have one of those quarterbacks, I think Carson Wentz is a perfect quarterback to step in that you can rely on to maybe not get you that type of production, just maybe limit on the upside, and that might be just the situation of his team. But the thing is, he has been consistent and he's been taking care of the ball, which is a big thing in the quarterback spot.
I agree. Mr. Right now for Carson Wentz, especially in Week 7 with so many of these teams on bye. Let's turn to the backfield, and Eagles running back Miles Sanders. Philly's 24-year-old back, who, by the way, is pretty talented, has just carried the ball 57 times in 6 games, and 28 of those came in the first 2 weeks. He also has yet to reach the end zone, so that's another thing. However, after the Eagles lost to the Bucs in Week 6, head coach Nick Sirianni did say there's no doubt we got to get the ball to Miles more, and we got to be more balanced. So, all of that being said, Austin, make up or break up with Miles?
Unlike the Bears, the Eagles are committed to the pass. They're passing that thing. What also has been hurting just the running back play in general is that it's like pass, and then if there's nothing there, Jalen Hurts is basically becoming the check down and just running the ball. Here's the thing. I'm gonna save it to this game. Let's save it to this game because the Raiders, their defense, for whatever reason, their linebackers like to stay off the ball like 6 or 7 yards, which opens up some running lanes. So if he can get it done this week, I'm gonna stay with him. If not, I might be looking to trade him as well, or looking for other options.
All right, so this is a get-right game for Miles Sanders against the Raiders. You heard it here first. We're staying with him for 1 more week.
Obviously, I'm on bye this week, and I have myself in one of my teams, and I'm in a deep league, so I need some deep help. 20 people, and these guys, a few girls.
20 people league.
20 people. These people take it seriously, so
yes,
they are on top of it.
This is like a sports media first, where an active player is on a show asking a fantasy analyst for help for themselves and their own team. I love this.
All right, checking out the app and the free agent running backs right now. I have Malcolm Brown.
Okay, who else?
Justin Jackson, my guy. Well, he's on bye, so that doesn't work. Never mind. I know that guy.
You know him.
We got Jalen Richard, and then we have Travis Homer.
Okay, Seattle's running back room's a little banged up. Sure.
Then we have Ty Montgomery.
Whoa. All right, this is deep. Now we're going deep. All right.
I'm telling you.
The options are getting worse. I'm going to say that probably Malcolm Brown is your best bet. You're just going to hope for a touchdown. Malcolm Brown obviously was on the Rams for a bunch of years. They loved him there. Went to Miami. Miami has a solid matchup against the Falcons. So, it's definitely a crowded backfield in Miami, but I think your best shot at a score is probably Malcolm Brown. Maybe he falls into the end zone, as people like to say. So I think that if you're looking for a desperation on your personal team, Malcolm Brown's probably the way to go.
Yeah, I'm definitely in the desperation mode. So, hey, 1 point right now, that's a plus. Let's go. So that's what I'm searching for. I appreciate the help, though.
Holla! It's time for our Week 7 Primetime Ballers. Now, on our Sunday night football game, I had my little script together, but as you heard, it's raining like a Lil Wayne concert up in here. Well, actually, Lil Wayne after the concert. Like, they had cars parked on the side of the road and all that, so I'm off script right now. Like, it's raining like crazy. So, You'll understand why I'm giving you this little preface before I get into it. So my first guy that I'm going with is Elijah Mitchell, which is a smart play because that Indianapolis defense is really tough against the run, but I already felt like Shanahan was going to be stubborn with the run, but especially with the elements right now, he's really going to have to be. And Eli seemed like he was the guy before the bye against Arizona, so I feel like he's going to be a solid play today. On the flip side, we got Jonathan Taylor, another guy who should be heavily used in this matchup where we playing in this damn monsoon out here in the California weather. Because obviously, I don't know what my man was thinking last week when he only got 2 carries in the first half and then came back and then gave the Houston Texans the Bankies with 2 tubs, I believe, in that long run. But now you're going against the San Francisco 49ers, wet conditions. Carson Wentz is already kind of, I know y'all was saying he's kind of coming on, but in that wet conditions too, like, Jonathan Taylor gonna be the guy. So I really like what you get out of him at that really cheap price for him for $29. And now my superstar player was my man Deebo Samuel because I thought the conditions was gonna be nice. I felt like Jimmy G could have himself a typical Jimmy G game where Shanahan tries to protect him. They throw the ball enough for Deebo to get off. But then that's it because, you know, this could be the perfect game for the man that I will not say his name. But because the elements are bad and he still hasn't proven that I could say his name on this show or just in life, I'm going to continue to not reference him by his name, but just say that guy until he allows me to say that guy's name. But Deebo Samuel's going to be your superstar. Now on to the next game, even though I don't see Deebo Samuel on my screen. Oh, there we go right there. But now we're going to go to the Monday night football game. We got the Saints. We have Seattle. And what did I say last time that Seattle played against Pittsburgh? I thought that was a Najee Harris game. Well, I feel like this week is going to be an Alvin Kamara game. But it's going to be a little bit different. That's why I'm going with Jameis Winston right here because Seattle has been really friendly in the pass game. And we know that Sean Payton likes to use Alvin Kamara, not only as, you know, that back that he's going to run in the red zone, but also screen routes and line them out outside wide and get them involved in the pass game. So I really feel like Jameis is going to come on along with Alvin, and they're going to have some synergy here against that Seattle defense. Now, on the flip side, I got for Seattle, DK Metcalf. I feel like they're going to be playing from behind. I feel like he's a better match for Geno in the pass game. Geno had some trouble finding Tyler Lockett against Pittsburgh. And I feel like, you know, having that smaller receiver, not too comfortable in the system, that Saints defense is pretty tough. I believe that they're going to challenge Lockett. They're going to challenge Geno. So you have to look for that big target DK. So he's probably your safest player there. And then obviously the superstar player of this game is going to be Alvin Kamara. That Saints offense runs through that dude, whether it's in the run, pass game. He's going to give you all the flashy plays. I'm not sure what the weather conditions like in Seattle, but I know if it's wet down here, it got to be wet up there. And if you're playing on a slippery field, then Alvin Kamara can give you them slinkies. So I already know that he should be a solid play for you this week. So those are my plays for you. Now we're going to go ahead and slide over, I think, to my girl Lizzie and my man Red for some sexy flexy picks. So y'all go ahead and take it away.
All right, keep sending in those questions and we'll get to, oh, never mind. Go ahead, Andy. I'm so sorry. Did not mean to step on the rev.
Stepping all over you. Well, it's make your pick time. That's where we're at. We're taking your social questions. We're answering some flex questions for the people. Let's start with Craigasus. Craigasus needs not to be confused with Craigosaurus, which I almost said. Craig needs 2 of these lads for an RB2 flex, half PPR. Whew, this is a list. Devontae Booker, Alex Collins, Khalil Herbert, T. Higgins. There are some tough matchups here. So Khalil Herbert is just going to be hurling himself into that Tampa Bay defensive front. They don't give up anything. T. Higgins facing a Baltimore defense that allows like the 5th fewest fantasy points to opposing receivers. Alex Collins is banged up, hasn't practiced all week, and by process of elimination, I am going to give you Devontae Booker. That is who I would play. It's not a great matchup, but at least he's seen 35 touches over the past couple games. We know he's going to get workload. Do you agree with any of that, Liz?
I agree with all of it. I mean, I think if we're looking from a volume-based point of view, Devontae Booker, I mean, listen, we're not hoping that Elijah Penny vultures him at the goal line again, right? Like, can that happen 2 weeks in a row? Hopefully not. So I think from a volume-based standpoint, Devontae Booker is the best option. And also, when we're talking about Khalil Herbert, don't forget that Damian Williams is back, and the matchup is also really tough.
Yeah, that's a good example of the kind of dilemmas that a lot of us are facing in the worst bye week that I can recall. Let's take another one here. Let's see who we've got. It is ACS in a PPR asking us to pick one. We got some better names here. Dallas Goedert, Rashad Bateman, Michael Carter, J.D. McKissic, or Mike Gesicki. Liz, who do you like from that list in a full PPR?
I think this one's a little bit more difficult because, as you said, there were some more interesting, perhaps, names with higher potential. I do want to make a note. He is not my pick. I do want to make a note about Michael Carter. Tevin Coleman is out. I don't think that affects Michael Carter, whether Coleman plays or not. But Carter did manage 90 total yards against New England when they faced off back in week 2. So just a note for people who are thinking about him. He did perform, above expectation, certainly for week 2. But I think I'm going to go with J.D. McKissic in this one. McKissic, we've talked about him, and I think we're going to continue to talk about him the whole show. This is a converted college receiver who was behind only Alvin Kamara in terms of receptions last year. Now, he's not on pace for those numbers this year, but when we look at the matchup, what can we do against the Green Bay defense? Well, we can run against them, and I expect that Antonio Gibson is going to be in and out of the game as he was last week, still dealing with his shin issue. And we know that obviously the Washington football team is going to be chasing points. So I think that anything that J.D. McKissic does is going to work for fantasy managers in this particular matchup. So I think he's my favorite sleeper of the week, frankly.
Yeah, I think it's a great call. I think he's looking at basically the same sort of workload that he saw last week, which is probably the outer limit for J.D. McKissic's workload, but it was plenty. They are going to be chasing points in this one. He would be my start as well. Okay, keep those questions coming. Send them in via all social platforms, and we'll be answering them throughout the show. We're now going to send it to Matt and Tank for a little fantasy face-off.
Yeah, that's right. We're going to debate two similarly ranked players at the quarterback position. We've got guys like Dak Prescott, Justin Herbert, Josh Allen, all on bye, Tank. So the people out there need some streamers. We're going to debate two guys, and you're going to start us off with a player who his own coaching staff, Sam Darnold, is like, you know what? After what I've seen, I think we need to establish the run a little bit. So tell us why the people should be throwing out Sam Darnold when his own coaching staff is like, I don't know about this guy.
Hold on, how are you going to lead in a segment like that when this other quarterback that you have was benched for the ginger fist? But I digress. All right, so Sam Darnold, we looking at these So these defenses, like the New York Giants give up the 5th most fantasy points to quarterbacks, and the Tampa Bay defense gives up the 6th most. So then let's think about this logically. So basically we're saying if all things are even, you're playing against an even defense, which offensive scheme is going to allow the quarterback to score the most points? And it's not really rocket science. Like Sam Darnold has the 2nd most rushing touchdowns in the league. So if you're talking about, hey, we need to run the ball more, he may be part of that. And at the same time, I feel like Sam Darnold in that connection with DJ Moore has shown that he could be competent against a team that's going to allow them to shred them in the pass game, which the Giants can. So to me, until my man Justin Fields shows me that he can take advantage of a weak pass defense, I'm going to go with the dude who's already shown me he can do it with that and with his legs. Give it to me, Sammy.
Fair points overall, but I would say, obviously this is not a revelation for me to say this, but man, if I just knew how the first 2 drives were going to go for the Chicago Bears, I would feel so much better about picking Justin Fields here. Obviously, it'd be great to get the answers to the test ahead of time. What a revelatory statement by me. But my point in that is, basically every single team has just given up on running the ball against Tampa Bay. They don't even try. But if there was ever a coaching staff that's dumb enough to go run, pass in their first 2 drives against the Bucs, it would be the Bears. But nevertheless, I do think Justin Fields going against a defense that's 24th in explosive pass rate allowed. We're not asking for a ton of volume here for Justin Fields. We're banking on big plays. This is the week for Justin Fields to go out there and show what he can do. Tampa Bay's pass rush has been okay. We know the Bears' offensive line is not that great, but overall, I think you're starting to see Justin Fields take off. Running 2, that was a big thing last week against the Packers. Should be a big thing in this matchup. I think that we can get Justin Fields' best game of his pro career. I would rather bet on a player that's on the uptick than that's clearly on the downtick, which is Sam Darnold is here. So I am going to go with Justin Fields as a streaming quarterback, and I am obviously correct over Tank Williams here. You're welcome.
I win.
You're welcome, Tank. Yeah, I don't know about that. Anyways, Tank can deal with the loss because we are about to go to our next break here on Fantasy Football Live. When we come back, We have some more player props, very exciting stuff there. So don't go away. We're going to check in on what is trending as well.
B, I want the real B.
I feel like I'm a starter. Everybody feel like I'm a starter.
If you don't know me, feel free to judge.
People always ask, will Kevin Love go back to Portland?
If I was wearing a Portland jersey, I mean, that's special. That's playing at home.
Did you talk to LeBron?
We never really talked about those matters. We moved forward from that.
There's some lines that even ambassadors shouldn't cross.
And then there's the load management. How you feel about that, Dr. J?
I'm Hannah Kaiser, and this is The Bandwagon. The best way to watch baseball is with an unnecessarily masochistic level of emotional investment. Check out these dance moves. Ohtani Unleashed. Aliens, fan. I don't know if they're watching. Huge fan. It was a socially distanced first pitch. He looks like a female superhero. This week on Humble Proposal, Jason Benetti, Jeff Passan, Shane Bieber. Every morning I wake up and I look at the standings and I'm like, who's out of the running? Nobody. Only the Pirates.
When I'm decorating a space, I'm constantly shopping, even on Yahoo Mail.
Oh, it's so perfect.
Finding the right piece really brings it all together.
Watch free live football. The NFL is on your phone all season long. Watch the NFL live on the Yahoo Sports mobile app.
We are back here on Fantasy Football Live, and while you were gone, we were checking in on the social conversation. Here are the players trending right now. No surprise, J.D. McKissic, we've already talked about him a bunch. Rashad Bateman, rookie making his second start for Baltimore, Darnell Mooney, and A.J. Dillon. You know what? I want to talk about Darnell Mooney because I feel like he's someone we haven't discussed. He did find the end zone last week for the first time in 2021, managed 8 targets, which was a season high. And, you know, Matt was talking about Justin Fields a little bit earlier. So, Tank, what's your take on Mooney? Is he becoming, especially with Allen Robinson, who you and I will talk about a little bit later, a decent floor play for PPR-friendly formats?
I mean, I like the way that he's getting targeted. I mean, I think when we used to look at that Bears offense, it was like A-Rob, and then that was it. I mean, but Mooney has been the one that's had the splash plays. He's been the one that shown some signs of life in that Chicago offense. And, I mean, I have to agree with my man Matt by saying that if there's any game that Fields and Mooney is going to get off, it should be this one against Tampa Bay because the game script is going to be in their favor. They're likely going to be playing from behind because I expect TB and those guys to get off. And so I feel like, yeah, I think his floor is only increasing, but especially in the game script like this where they're playing from behind, I feel like you can feel safe to play Mooney.
Andy, I want to talk about A.J. Dillon with you. No work in the passing game last week, which was a little bit disappointing, but then he ripped off like a 35 or 36-yard run. So he's still definitely keeping himself available as part of this timeshare with Aaron Jones. Obviously, he's behind Jones, but the matchup against the football team pretty good. They've given up 8 scores over the last 3 weeks. Where are you, especially with all the buys and the injuries, thinking that Dillon is a solid flex maybe this week?
Yeah, I actually think you got to play him. I think he's one of those upside guys, and we always get in trouble when we start banking on, you know, this idea that we can predict game script in advance and that we know exactly how things are going to go. But man, that Washington defense has been so soft, such a disappointment. It is very difficult to imagine that Green Bay won't be up late in this game, and we're going to see a lot of A.J. Dillon at that point. We're going to see him early too, right? Like they're basically giving us the same split that we had with Jamal Williams back in the day with Aaron Jones. Dillon playing well. He's been a little bit more involved as a receiver this season than I'd expected. So I think, especially in the second half of this game, sets up as a chance for A.J. Dillon to find the end zone at least once.
All right, it's time to get back into the Sportsbook now. Minty and Matt are checking in on some tasty player props over there. Guys, what do you have?
Yeah, that's right. We've got some exciting player props today, some big name players. Minty, I always enjoy getting into the Sportsbook with you and talking these player props. It's one of my most enjoyed segments of this entire show. So why don't you kick us off with your first one this week?
Yes, my first one is going to be arguably everyone's favorite running back, Derrick Henry. His rushing and receiving yards is set at 142.5. First of all, Derrick Henry has exceeded this number in just rushing yards alone in 3 of his last 5 games, averaging about 23 receiving yards per game, and this man cannot be stopped. Kansas City is not going to stop him. Their defense has issues of their own, so I'm going over. And remember, this is rushing and receiving, so I think this is a steal.
I love it. Yeah, getting the combined yards is nice. Getting the matchup against the Chiefs linebackers, who might be like the worst unit in the entire NFL right now, I think is pretty juicy as well. I am also going to go with a big hulking running back, and it's Leonard Fournette. You know, it's funny because this backfield, I was like, do not touch this backfield going into drafts, because I didn't expect them to do what they did, which is narrow down the focus here to basically just Fournette. And at this point, since they gave him an 82% snap share in that Patriots game, it has basically just been the Fournette show. And the best part is, he's responding to it. He's playing extremely well. Since then, he ranks 7th in yards after contact. He's forced 10 missed tackles. He ranks 3rd among running backs in catches and yards. So give me the easy over on his 15.5 carries here against a Bears team where the Bucs should be controlling the script the entire afternoon. Also worth noting, there's some injuries, some absences up front for Chicago's defense. So yeah, 15.5 carries. They've clearly just not adjusted to the fact that Fournette is the workhorse back here in Tampa Bay.
Yeah, his production has been on the higher end in his last several games. My next prop is going to be on Davis Mills. His passing yards is set at 228.5. And look, Arizona is allowing the 8th fewest passing yards per game. Davis Mills, although exceeded this amount in only his last 2 games, I don't really have much faith in him against Arizona. He's got great depth in his running backs, and Arizona struggles kind of against the run. So I think that's where they're going to succeed, is their run game. So I think this is going to be an easy under 228.5 passing yards.
Yeah, give me a break with the whole Davis Mills thing. It's definitely starting to come apart there. It's kind of hit or miss every week, but I'm with you going the under on this one this week. I'm going to take the coward's way out for my next pick. Again, I'm going to go with a carries number here for Darrell Henderson, but I love that you're getting the over on 17.5 carries at plus odds here because, again, much like with Fournette, maybe even more drastically so, the Rams have focused just on one back, which I did not see coming necessarily, but it has happened. Darrell Henderson is the guy there. He's played over 80% of the snaps in 3 games so far this year, 3 of 5 played. Obviously, the one he was kind of banged up in and then missed week 3. So, he has basically been the every down back for the LA Rams. We know that the Rams are going to be controlling this game against the Detroit Lions. Like I mentioned up at the top on the Matthew Stafford over-under, Henderson has been great this year. He's been a key part of this offense. So yeah, of course, all the attention, Minty, is on Matthew Stafford, but I definitely think that Darrell Henderson in the game that they should control here, the LA Rams, against a bad defense, both run and pass, I see Henderson getting a lot of work in this matchup.
Yep, absolutely. He's been on the upper double digits in all of his games, and yeah, against the Lions, you're right, LA is going to control that game, control the tempo, and run the ball a lot, so I love that prop there.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I just love predicting opportunity, not necessarily production. I do have a prediction that I will be back this week, Minty, on Yahoo Sportsbook Live later on today. Check us out, 11:30 a.m. Pacific, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time. We're going to be right back here. It's going to be me and Jared Quay this week. It's going to be a lot of fun, so make sure you come back. I'm 24-12 on my player props for the Sunday night and Monday Night Football halftime action there, so make sure you come check us out. It's going to be a fun show right here on Yahoo Sports.
All right, over under number 2, and we are going to that Sunday night game between the Colts and Niners. We're going to talk about Elijah Mitchell, and we're looking at fantasy points this week, 13.9. That seems relatively attainable. I will start us off here, and I'm going to take the over on 13.9. Now, only 2 running backs have done this against the Colts so far this season. They're pretty good. It's Darrell Henderson, it's Derrick Henry. It doesn't happen a lot. But Tank pointed it out earlier, that game's going to be played in a monsoon. We're talking driving rain. We're talking high winds. It's going to favor the run. We're going to get a lot of Elijah Mitchell here, and he's clearly running well ahead of Trey Sermon. We don't have to worry about him anymore. We do probably get JaMychal Hasty back in the mix this week. That's going to be a small concern. But we're only asking for 80 yards and a touchdown here. I think that's what Kyle Shanahan, in his heart, wants to do, right? He just wants to run the ball all day, and this is going to be a perfect opportunity to do it. So I will take the over. Liz, do you agree?
No, I don't. I want to agree, but I was on Fearless Forecast for running backs heading into this week, and I projected Elijah Mitchell to go under this number before all of the monsoon talk began, before there was even a forecast for Sunday. And while I think that he is going to see a decent amount of the touches and lead the backfield as he did in week 5, I mean, we've got Hasty back. Am I so sure that with the slippery conditions, this guy, who is a rookie, and by the way, a late round rookie, isn't gonna fumble, isn't gonna slip? Do I think he'll flirt with 80 total yards, 100%, 15 total touches? Sure. I just can't imagine him like finding the end zone or meeting the 100-yard mark. So I do think he goes slightly under this number.
Oh, I mean, when has Kyle Shanahan ever pulled the rug out from under us in a backfield? Tank, tell us why Elijah Mitchell can be played this week.
Yeah, I'm going with the over, and once again, I'm throwing all my notes out the window. Like, I understand, like, the Shanahanigans, like, that's a thing. But the fact that Lizzie came up to us and said, like, he could slip, he could fumble. I mean, you didn't mention it, but he could, like, end up going out with an injury, like, could pull a hammy or pull his ego. I mean, there's a lot of what-ifs that can happen in the NFL, but if we want to speak that things that are likely to happen, we know that Shanahan is stubborn with the run, so whether it's Hasty or Mitchell or probably a combination of them both, with all this rain and wetness that's coming down out here, I mean, like, for real, like, y'all don't understand how hard it was raining on my way here. Like, I almost didn't make it. Like, with all that stuff coming down, it's going to be a run-heavy game. Like, the only way that he doesn't slip and fall into the end zone is if he just gets caught up in a sinkhole and it just gets too muddy for him to make it there. Like, this dude's going over.
Oh, you love to see it. You love to see the over winning in these segments. We're going to have one more chance for the over to win later in the show.
Now I'm excited to welcome to the fantasy community segment here on Fantasy Football Live, Victoria Geary. Victoria is working at my old stomping grounds with Football Guys. She's the host of the Mailbag Show. Victoria, how has the 2021 season been treating you so far?
Oh, good and bad. You know, it's been an exciting ride, although, you know, I'm a big Bills fan, so that Monday night game last week was a heartbreaker. Yeah. But other than that, fantasy-wise, it's going well. How about yourself?
I mean, it's a mixed bag as always. We're going to talk about some players that we got right, some players we got wrong, because you and I sat down on our Yahoo Fantasy Football Forecast, which is, of course, our podcast, over the summer and started to talk about some guys that were really planting our flag on. Let's start with Darrell Henderson. Victoria, I was optimistic about Henderson going into this season, especially obviously when Cam Akers went down. But so far, he has way outkicked my expectations. I didn't think at all he would be this like featured back, but that's exactly what he's been so far.
He has looked good, and I know that big worry before the season started that scared many fantasy players away was just his durability. It was questionable. Can he carry this large workload in Akers' absence? And he's done it. And he's getting almost 20 opportunities a game. He's averaging almost 100 yards from scrimmage and a touchdown week in and week out. You can expect that from him. So he's just got unreal utilization and efficiency on one of the best offenses in the league. It's been really fun to watch.
Absolutely. I'm really excited for Darrell Henderson. Really, just how can you not want a piece of this Rams offense at this point? All right, Victoria, we started positive there with Darrell Henderson. Let's switch to the negative here. And I think the guy that a lot of people are talking about this week, Antonio Gibson, I don't know what to do with him because he's still out there clearly playing with an injury. Where are you at with Antonio Gibson right now?
Definitely hurts a little bit to see. There's some things that I think we could have looked at a little differently, maybe not believed all that coach speak from Ron Rivera saying they wanted to utilize him like CMC. Well, we haven't seen that. But there are other things out of our control and analysis, which are these many, many injuries that he's dealing with the last couple of weeks, the shin, the shoulder. But it feels worse than it is. I believe he's still RB16 on the season. And so obviously relative to ADP where you drafted him, not great, but it feels worse than it actually has been.
Well, all I can hope for is that in 2022, we're talking about a much better Antonio Gibson season, and we are more excited about that. I still have high hopes for him, long-term, dynasty, everything like that. So let's keep that candle lit. Let's end on a positive note here, Victoria. We talked about Austin Eckler in the preseason. Running back 2 in Yahoo standard scoring, half PPR. He's been unbelievable. Obviously, the receiving workload has been their 32 targets, but the fact that they've basically just phased out all of the running backs and made this an Austin Eckler-centric backfield has been incredibly encouraging to me. Where are you at rest of season with Austin Eckler?
I don't see how you can rank him outside of the top 5. He's RB2 on the season overall for PPR. Of course, Derrick Henry, the king at RB1 overall, leaps and bounds ahead, but 22 points per game in PPR, you have to rank him top 5 rest of the season. It is awesome to see Austin Eckler crushing it out there. PFP, pound for pound, his nickname. It's just been incredible to watch.
Love when we can end on a positive note here in the fantasy community. Victoria, tell all the folks out there, the viewers of Fantasy Football Live, where they can find you, what you're working on the rest of the season.
You can find me on Twitter at FFB_Victoria, also on Instagram there. I'm putting out content for footballguys.com and do a Monday Night Football short 5-minute video talking about the Monday night matchups. And also you can catch me on the Football Guys Mailbag Show every single Wednesday night, 7:30 Eastern with Dave and Troy. That's always a good time. Send us your questions to mailbag@footballguys.com.
Awesome. Appreciate you, Victoria. Enjoy the Bills bye. It'll be a non-sweat week for you in that regard. And good luck to every one of your fantasy teams out there.
Absolutely. You too. Thanks so much for having me.
All right, people of the chat, Liz and I are here for you, whether you're watching on YouTube, Facebook. Hit the chat room with some good questions right now, some emojis. Let's start with this one, though, from YouTube, Liz. K Meyer016 asks us, A.J. Brown or Jalen Waddle in a half PPR. I know you like Waddle. I talked about Waddle earlier in the show. I'm very excited about him, but do we want to chance him over a hopefully non-Chipotle consuming A.J. Brown in this spot?
I mean, I'm going with Big Guac here. You cannot pass on a player in the wide receiver one in a matchup that has an over-under of 57.5. When do you even see a projected point total that high? So I think when you have so many points available, you have to go with A.J. Brown and some Pepto.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, give me a break with this whole A.J. Brown situation. It is kind of like the funniest storyline of the entire season, because, I mean, NFL players, they're just like us. Who hasn't been there in that situation, especially potentially with a franchise sort of kind of close to that? Trying not to cost us any sponsorships here on Fantasy Football Live. So I'll keep it moving here to the next question. From Claudia on Facebook, asks, in a standard league, I guess maybe Yahoo Standard or the old lame standard, hard to say, Chase Edmonds, Elijah Mitchell, Devontae Booker, or Alex Collins. Liz, we got to pick 2. I couldn't not get a dusty running back question in here.
All right, well, we're not going with Alex Collins because he's not healthy. As much as Pete Carroll loves to, blow rainbows and sunshine out of everything, like, I don't trust it. So I think if we have to pick 2 of these, Elijah Mitchell, Andy and Tank think is going to go absolutely ham, so we gotta go with him. And then I think Devontae Booker, we talked about earlier, probably has the best volume-based opportunity.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Look, I'd love to chance Alex Collins, but it's just, it's tough. Like, Elijah Penny might, Penny is probably going to be active. Not Elijah Penny. Rashad Penny, yeah, he's going to be active potentially. I don't want to mess around with that. I know there was a couple other questions on YouTube about Alex Collins as well. If you have an alternative, that would be great. I have no idea how that situation is going to go. I'm in on Elijah Mitchell too, Sunday Night Football. I don't know that he's going to go crazy, but I think opportunity-wise, it should be there for him. Let's take another one here from YouTube. James Conner or Corey Davis as a flex in a 1-point PPR. Interesting because it is 1-point PPR. Liz, I know we just had Chase Edmonds there in the last question. Right. I think this is a big week for James Conner. I think game script wise, it should be, I know that Andy mentioned earlier, sometimes it can be dicey projecting game script. I'm feeling pretty comfortable projecting the game script here with the Arizona Cardinals. With J.J. Watt and DeAndre Hopkins going to Houston, I mean, give me a break. Like, this is a great revenge game. It should be an awesome spot for James Conner as a big favorite here. That's my pick over Corey Davis, even in the PPR format.
Yeah, we already saw what Bill Belichick can do to Corey Davis earlier in the season. And when you talk about the Arizona Cardinals and not predicting game script, well, Vegas has them as nearly 20-point favorites, which should give James Conner plenty of clock eating time. And also, I don't know if you know this, but it's Arizona state law that Chase Edmonds can't score touchdowns. That means James Conner will have the goal line.
Agree. Yes, it is always good to follow the laws, follow legal procedures, and that is clearly what's going on there with Chase Edmonds. Shout out to Cliff for that one at least. All right, last one we're going to take here. This comes from Bob on Facebook, and I know you talked about CJ Uzomah earlier in the sleeper section, so I'm assuming that's who you're talking about here, Bob. We've got a birthday cake emoji, a smiley face. How nice, the vibes. That's great. Bob Tunyon or CJ Uzomah this week, Liz? Which is your tight end pick here?
Well, I like to call him Uzomah because he oozes fantasy potential, particularly in the red area of the field. Also, that's a cover on my part. Excellent professional. And yes, I'm going to go with CJ. Thank you.
Yeah, I didn't know where you were going with that one, but you landed the plane nicely. A little bit of turbulence there, but you hit the ground. I like to see it. All right, we got to take a break here on fantasy. A little drama to go with the sports action. We love to see that. All right, we got to take a break here on Fantasy Football Live to recover from that incredible little play on words there by our own Liz Loza. When we come back, though, the Saints are heavy road favorites over the Seattle Seahawks. That's surprising on Monday night, but can fantasy managers turn to Jameis Winston? We're going to find out next.
B, I want the real B.
I feel like I'm a starter. Everybody feel like I'm a starter.
If you don't know me, feel free to judge.
People always ask, will Kevin Love go back to Portland?
If I was wearing a Portland jersey, I mean, that's special. That's playing at home.
Did you talk to LeBron?
We never really talked about those battles. We moved forward from that.
There's some lines that even ambassadors shouldn't cross.
And then there's the load management. How you feel about that, Dr. J?
I'm Hannah Kaiser, and this is The Bandwagon.
Yeah,
The best way to watch baseball is with an unnecessarily masochistic level of emotional investment. Check out these dance moves. Ohtani Unleashed.
Yeah.
Aliens, fan. I don't know if they're watching. Huge fan. It was a socially distanced first pitch. He looks like a female superhero. This week on Humble Proposal, Jason Benetti, Jeff Passan, Shane Bieber. Every morning I wake up and I look at the standings and I'm like, who's out of the running? Nobody. Only the Pirates.
When I'm decorating a space, I'm constantly shopping, even on Yahoo Mail.
Oh, it's so perfect.
Finding the right piece really brings it all together.
Watch free live football. The NFL is on your phone all season long. Watch the NFL live on the Yahoo Sports.
All right, time for our final over-under here on the show, and we're going to set this for Jameis Winston, as I mentioned as before the break. 249.5 passing yards against the Seattle Seahawks. Horrible, horrible defense, and I hate to be horrible about this, but I am going under for the second time in the show. Jameis Winston has thrown 30 passes just once all year. It is very, very, very apparent that the Saints want to hide their quarterback, and I totally get it. Jameis has been efficient in the touchdown department. He actually leads all quarterbacks in touchdown rate, but they're not allowing him to throw the ball very often. They're playing it safe there, and I think this is just going to be a huge Alvin Kamara game. He's been sort of disappointing in fantasy, but he's still 5th in the NFL in touches, and actually most of it has come via the ground this year, which is surprising, going against a bad Seahawks defense that allows 181 total yards per game to running backs. Yeah, give me the under on Jameis Winston. Minty, I never bet unders. It just goes against my philosophical belief in how to approach life. But for these producer set lines, I'm obligated to go under on this one, but I know you will make me feel better on this.
Yeah, so you are an overs better. I mean, I think in Yahoo Sportsbook Live, you took the over in like all your props. So props 100%,
to you.
And
every time.
Yeah, And I think you stole my notes. I had literally everything that you said. I'm also going under here. Jameis Winston doesn't throw the ball a lot, and he doesn't need to. He's completing an average of only 14 passes per game, has less than 250 passing yards in 5 of 6 games, and it's going to be really rainy in Seattle, so he can't risk those turnovers here. The Seahawks rush defense is one of the worst in the league, so the under makes the most sense here.
I think it does make the most sense, but Liz, do you agree with Minty and I? Are we going to make this a big negative sweep?
Oh, I'm sorry. I started to daydream because this was so boring. No, we're not going to take the under in this one. Come on. We're going to take the over. Sean Payton has had a flippin' week to get over his trust issues with Jameis Winston, and he's going to have to deal with them because Taysom Hill's not available. So good luck trying to hide Winston behind your other quarterback. Not going to happen this week. Seattle's defense is bad. I know they're bad against every position, but they're also allowing the 5th most receiving yards in the league. Let's take the over and not get a snooze fest in prime time, please.
I mean, sometimes a snooze fest is inevitable, and I think it takes more than a week to get over trust issues, especially when you're Sean Payton on this one. But that is going to do it for our over-unders. Let's send it over to Andy, who's talking about some bad beats this week.
Yeah, each week when the Monday night dust settles, we do a little thing we like to call fantasy bad beats, where we review your most gutting, agonizing fantasy losses from the week before. You can always hit us up. Find me, find the Yahoo Fantasy Twitter handle. Hit us up with the hashtag FFLBadBeats. Submit yours. This week, we actually had an unusual opportunity to talk to a quarterback who was responsible for a whole bunch of bad beats the prior Monday night. Let's check it out. Monday's game between Buffalo and Tennessee, it had all of that. It had everything. It had a negated touchdown. It had a coach declining a field goal. I'm sure there's somebody out there who's upset that you stole a rushing touchdown from Derrick Henry, even though he had 3. The thing also ended, as many games do, with the winning team taking a knee in victory formation. I would imagine that there's no more satisfying snap for a quarterback to take.
It is. It's the best feeling is taking that knee at the end of the game, knowing that you have the game in hand. And doing that and then going in the locker room, celebrating with the teammates, there's nothing better.
So the thing about the kneel down is that it's also kind of a fantasy nightmare, right? Because it is like officially it's a loss of a rushing yard. And so we always hear, especially in this segment, we always hear from people who've lost in fantasy because their quarterback was like a little bit too successful in reality and took a knee. Like, I don't suppose that I could convince you to allow maybe young Logan Woodside or literally anybody else to enter a game and take those knees on your behalf?
So Logan's always trying to get in the game anyway, so maybe I can I'll let him take some knees, hopefully help some fantasy owners out.
Yeah, again, as long as you're not doing the Kyler Murray, we're probably okay, because that's just mean-spirited.
Don't have to worry about that. I will not be taking knees from God, no shot.
I have to ask, because we have you here and because you have like literally the best seat to watch like another historic Derrick Henry season. Every time you guys are playing, the rest of us are like on Twitter making jokes about the business decisions being made by defensive players when Henry is in the open field. You must make some of those same jokes on the field, right?
Yeah, it's fun. And it's fun to watch him, especially when you see him get on the edge and it's like a 180-pound corner and 250-pound Derrick going eye to eye, and you see the stiff arm coming. It's like almost slow motion, and you know the corner's like trying not to get stiff arm. He knows it's coming, but Derrick still hits him with it anyways, and it's no doubt it's fun to watch.
I feel like it's kind of an honor if he actually sort of blesses you with the stiff arm, right? Instead of just letting you bounce off of him.
You'll live as a highlight in infamy forever on.
One last thing on the Titans offense. What can you tell us about some of the young players? Nick Westbrook, Akina comes to mind, who've really stepped up with AJ and Julio sidelined.
Yeah, Nick came up huge for us last night. Made some huge plays down in the fourth quarter. We had some other injuries where the guys dropped out, and Nick has stepped in multiple times for us over the past couple of years. So he's a guy I have a lot of confidence in. Can play every receiver position we have. So he's really a multi-tool for us and makes a ton of big plays.
Well, I can't thank you enough for joining us. Everyone, please remember, Ryan committed here to allow his backup, Logan Woodside, into some of these games, to take some of these knees in the future, because we know the Titans are going to be collecting many more W's to come.
Don't hold me
best
to
of
it.
luck.
Love that Rev got the stiff arm talk about Tannehill in. I like it. What it do, baby? It's your boy T-Money coming with my Week 7 Ball on the Budgets. Now, we first started off with that man Matt Ryan at $25. Now, I know at first I was a little cold on my man Matty Ice because he was twice the ice to start the year. But, hey, this dude has thrown for like multiple touchdowns in the past couple games. He finally got Kyle Pitts off. He gets my man Ridley the Riddler back going against a Miami defense that gives up the 8th most fantasy points to quarterbacks. I really like Matty Ice in this spot. And so, hey, if he keeps balling the way that he's been balling so far, they may have to take him out them Tide commercials with Ice-T and my man Stone Cold. So, Matty Ice, keep doing your thing, boy. Now, at running back, I'm going with that dude, Chuba Hubbard, $22 going against the Giants. Like, man, that loss against the Vikings was kind of nasty last week. But what I really like about that is that I expect the Panthers to bounce back against the Giants team that's been reeling. Chuba has double-digit fantasy points in the past couple weeks. And, like, I hate talking about Mike Davis because I really like the dude and I like his game. But remember what Mike Davis did in that offense last year when Christian McCaffrey went out? Now, I feel like Chuba's a better athlete. He's been balling already, too. Really great matchup against the Giants, where they give up the 5th most fantasy points to running backs. I think he's an easy play for you at $22. Now, at wide receiver, I'm going with that boy Mike Evans, $24. Now, I know they got some cheaper plays out there, but no Gronk, no AB. The Chicago defense gives up the 13th most fantasy points to wide receivers. And I already told you, like, no Gronk, no AB. Like, TB is out there talking noise on TV and on social media about going up against Ohio State quarterback and how Ohio State ain't nothing. Like, he's definitely going to go off this week after a quiet week against Philadelphia. So I really like him. And when you got Fournette, who's been balling out, I got him on one of my fantasy teams. Leonard Fournette is more expensive than my man Mike Evans and Chris Godwin this week. Enough said. Now, at tight end, I'm going with my man Dallas Goedert. Because my man that comes from tight end Zach Ertz, is no longer there. So that 10-plus targets that used to go to the tight end group is now going to my man Dallas. He's coming off the COVID list, but I feel like he's going to be able to play most of the snaps. $17. Going against a Raiders defense who allowed pretty much every tight end that's faced them the past 4 weeks to get off except for Chicago and, well, that's the Bears. And so, I mean, that will allow you to go ahead and slide him into your lineup. Philadelphia Eagles coming off a long week after getting beat down by the Bucs. Like, I feel like they're going to try to bounce back. This could be a sneaky shootout in the desert, so I really like my man Dallas at $17. So get those dudes in your lineup, because remember, the T is for the money, and the money is something that you will not have in your pocket or your wallet if you do not get them in your lineup. Now, Producer Dan, let's go to these damn standings. My man Reverend took the lead last week because he went with the double Darryl, or Darryl and Darrell, like Darrell Henderson and Darrell Williams, and they both balled out. But Queen Lizzie is still rocking the crown in our Guru Challenge. My man Matt is right there, Minty's right there. I think we may have to start going contrarian, like playing like tourney lineups instead of like cash lineups, because they're getting a little bit of lead on us. But it's still early. It's week 7. We got a long way to go.
All right, you can still get in on the action in daily fantasy this morning on Yahoo. Our big $1 million baller contest is open, and you can win cash prizes. First place takes home $100,000 plus an entry into the first ever Yahoo Fantasy Football Championship Live Finals. Visit the Daily Fantasy Football lobby and join in on the fun. Woo, all right, let's check back to Twitter for some more viewer questions at the hashtag AskFFL. This first one is a running back question in full point PPR, and it is between Mike Davis versus those Dolphins or J.D. McKissic versus the Packers. Matt, do you think this is the week that Mike Davis carries the ball 50 times?
I don't know about 50, but I actually do kind of like Mike Davis this week. But I would go J.D. McKissic over here. Look, the Antonio Gibson injury situation is problematic. And look, McKissic, he's one of these guys that, you know, out there in fantasy is like, get this guy off the field. I need Antonio Gibson to get more touches. But, like, McKissic looks good. He's playing a pretty solid role in this offense right now, and kind of important. Like, just because everybody in fantasy hates this guy doesn't mean he's a bad player. I think he's a really good play this week against the Packers. All
right, Andy, this next question is for you. It's from Anita. She has a question about Brandon Cooks, Josh Jacobs, or Hollywood Brown. One of those options to flex. I feel like you're probably going to say Josh Jacobs, but maybe you'll prove me wrong.
We don't know the format here. I think the only format in which I would actually play Jacobs here would be like a standard. I would have a very difficult time sitting Hollywood Brown. He's been great. Love that passing game. Love everything that we've seen from Lamar. I feel like the best shot at a touchdown here is probably Hollywood. He's just absolutely wowed me. He's been a top 10 receiver to this point. These are great options. These are all stellar options. I don't really think you can go wrong, but I would go Hollywood here.
All right, and you did prove me wrong. Minty, this one is for you. Junior51 asks, you're an anti-Chiefs bettor. If you didn't have a moniker, you do now. Do you think they cover 4.5 points against the Titans?
Well, Junior, you just said it. I don't like betting on the Chiefs because they don't cover the spread. Although this is a short spread, 4.5 is a really tricky number to win by, or essentially you'd have to win by 5. So yeah, I would look to the Titans actually, plus 4.5. I think they look really good and they're going to give the Chiefs a run for their money.
All right, Tank, we're going to have one more question and it's going to you. Andrew asks, Devonta Freeman, Christian Kirk, or Corey Davis, please and thank you. We do like good manners on this show.
Oh, yes, we do. Wow. I think it's between Corey Davis and Devonta Freeman. I mean, I feel like the Ravens have a decent chance of being able to run the ball against Cincinnati this weekend. It's going to be Devonta Freeman. It's probably going to be Left Bell. I'm not sure. They may try to get Tyson Williams in the mix, but I think Devonta Freeman is probably going to be the lead dog, and so I'd rather go there versus going with Corey Davis, who could get peppered with targets, but then not get targets. Zach Wilson could throw multiple interceptions. Like, I think Devonta Freeman is probably a safer play for you, so I would just go with that higher floor with Devonta Freeman.
I think you're right there, especially with Latavius Murray not being active this week. But we are going to take another break here on FFL, and when we come back, we'll try to make some money with Minty's best bets. Don't go away.
B, I want the real B.
I feel like I'm a starter. Everybody feel like I'm a starter.
If you don't know me, feel free to judge.
People always ask, will Kevin Love go back to Portland?
If I was wearing a Portland jersey, I mean, that's special. That's playing at home.
Did you talk to LeBron?
We never really talked about those battles. We moved forward from that.
There's some lines that even ambassadors shouldn't cross.
And then there's the load management. How you feel about that, Dr. J?
I'm Hannah Kaiser, and this is The Bandwagon. The best way to watch baseball is with an unnecessarily masochistic level of emotional investment. Check out these dance moves. Ohtani unleashed. Aliens, fan. I don't know if they're watching. Huge fan. It was a socially distanced first pitch. He looks like a female superhero. This week on Humble Proposal, Jason Benetti, Jeff Passan, Shane Bieber. Every morning I wake up and I look at the standings and I'm like, who's out of the running? Nobody. Only the Pirates.
When I'm decorating a space, I'm constantly shopping, even on Yahoo Mail.
Oh, it's so perfect.
Finding the right piece really brings it all together.
Watch free live football. The NFL is on your phone all season long. Watch the NFL live on the Yahoo Sports mobile app.
And we're back here on Fantasy Football Live. 6 games kicking off at the top of the hour. Here are the key actives and inactives this morning. Not pretty in New York. Sterling Shepard is inactive for the Giants. Saquon Barkley, Kadarius Toney, and Kenny Golladay already ruled out as well. Darius Slayton, John Ross, and Evan Ingram, who were all listed as questionable, are active against Carolina. Also in the NFC East, the Washington football team's Antonio Gibson may be limited again this week as he plays through a hairline fracture in his shin, but he is active. Tennessee's Julio Jones is active today against Kansas City. He had missed some practice time earlier this week after tweaking his hamstring against Buffalo. This afternoon, the Raiders may be without tight then Darren Waller against Philadelphia. Adam Schefter reporting Waller, quote, doesn't feel great, but they're going to test it in the pregame. All right, Minty, it is time for you and me to debate your best bets for this week. So, what do you have?
All right, first up, I know this is a game you are excited about. I'm going Lions-Rams under 50.5. Now, this LA defense is 4th in defensive DVOA, and Detroit's offense is only averaging 18 points per game. Rams offense probably one of the best in the league right now, but Detroit doesn't have the efficiency or the weapons to keep up. So I like this total set pretty high at 50.5 because I love the under here.
I don't think I'm, quote, excited for this game. I just refuse to manifest a game that is as dull as a Jared Goff post-game interview. I won't do it. I feel like I know that I'm taking the Narrative Street emotional reaction to this, and I know that that doesn't really bode well for sports betting. See Tom Brady's return to Gillette, but I will not manifest something this boring. So I will take the over on Lions-Rams.
Okay,
what do you have next?
Next up is Sunday Night Football, the Colts and the Niners. I'm taking the Colts plus 3.5 and sprinkling a little bit on that money line. Excuse me. I know it's kind of risky to bet against a team fresh off a bye week and off of several weeks of losses, hungry for a win. But the Colts offense looks great. They've cut their turnovers. They have decent pass protection, and the Niners are 2-8 against the spread their last 10 home games. So yeah, I really like the Colts plus the points here.
I love when we are in agreement, and we are back to agreeing because I agree with you on the Colts. You know, I talked up Carson Wentz last week in my sleeper section, and I feel like he is building on that floor that he's promised. I will take the backfield in Indianapolis over whatever Shanahanigans come together in this monsoon-like conditions. And you know what, Minty? You have also inspired me to finally get some onions on the line and take the money line. So yes and yes.
I love it. We are in harmony. Okay, the last game, Monday Night Football, as the Saints take on the Seahawks. Now, I love betting on Seattle as underdogs, but Geno Smith has just committed too many costly turnovers, so I'm not going to bet on him. The Saints are fresh off a bye week, and Jameis doesn't throw the ball a lot, which is okay, as I mentioned earlier, because Seattle's rush defense is one of the worst. This game has Alvin Kamara written all over it, so I'm taking the Saints here.
I completely agree with you. The Seahawks are really, really bad. And just to reiterate something that Tank said earlier, Marquez Callaway, awesome sleeper, especially in this week with so many teams on bye, for all of the reasons that you just stated. All right, there's still time to adjust those lineups, so let's find out who is going to be off their game this week. Matt?
Yeah, let's bring the negativity here. These are players that are started in like 50% plus of Yahoo leagues, but we think are in line for some bad performances today. Andy, I will let you start off the negativity train here.
Yeah, I gotta say, I feel guilty telling anybody to bench any active player in a week like this. The buys are so bad, it's horrible. You probably can't send TJ Hawkinson to the bench, and I'm not even really suggesting that. But man, I'm not expecting a big game here. He hasn't found the end zone since week 2. He's been playing through injury, so that's a huge part of it. We haven't really seen a huge yardage total out of him. Clearly not his normal explosive self. And he faces a Rams defense this week that has allowed only 1 touchdown to opposing tight ends. So they've been really good against the position. And this game could just be a massacre. If all you need is something like 5-6 catches, 55 yards out of Hawk, you might get it. But I'm not feeling like he's got any kind of significant upside in this one.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you on that one. Going to be tough to bench a guy like that, but kick those expectations down. Tank, who are you pushing expectations down for this week?
Yeah, I know my man Rev said it's hard to tell you to bench one person during bye game, but I'm telling you to bench about 11. I'm going with the Green Bay Packers defense, and I understand that, you know, people have some good feelings about the Packers defense. I actually think that the Green Bay Packers are a really great team, but when it comes to that defense, I know you're seeing all over media like this week, like their opponents are 15 for 15 when inside the 20-yard line. It is not just 15 for 15 scoring points. It's scoring touchdowns. Now, if that ain't fantasy football, I don't know what the hell is. So when I look at, you know, my man Heineke and Scary Terry having an off week, last week and looking for a bounce back game, and you have a defense that gives it up like that in the red zone. The only thing I could think of when I see the Green Bay Packers is, you know, my man Bruno Mars. Like, whenever you get in the red zone, stop showing them highlights. You know why? Because they going to keep the door open. Keep the door open. I'm done.
All right, well, I don't really know how to follow up that beautiful tune there, but I'll go ahead and also say, like Andy, you know, I don't know if I can really tell you to bench T. Higgins in a week where so many good receivers and so many good players are on bye overall. Like, do you really have a better option? I don't know, but you might, because things are not going well for T. Higgins so far. Things are really not going well for anybody that's not named Jamar Chase in this receiver room, because Joe Burrow has thrown 35 passes in just one game this year. For context, he cleared that in 8 of 10 games last year, and one of those games that he didn't clear it was a game against Washington where he got hurt. This is a huge shift from the Cincinnati Bengals. They are much more of a run-first operation because they want to protect the aforementioned injured Joe Burrow. So that has pushed down the volume for all of these players. You know, Tyler Boyd, forget it. He's cooked with that low ADOT. Even T. Higgins is not getting the explosive pass plays that we saw last year because those are all going to Jamar Chase. The guy's got 7 targets in just one game this year. So pretty disastrous. I don't know that you can really consider him a wide receiver 3 anymore. I think he's more of a boom-bust 4 or 5. So adjust those expectations for all of these players, or all of the guys that Tank mentioned accordingly. Now, we're going to continue the negative vibe in the Fantasy Football Survival Kit segment here because, man, you people out there made some bad picks and bad suggestions and bad thoughts coming into this year. Let's go ahead and talk about them. You blew it. You got a few things wrong this year, and that is what we asked you people, the people, my people. What was the thing that you got the most wrong so far this season? Let's steel ourselves and let's get right into it. First up, we got my buddy Neil Dutton. Neil, I love you, man, but what the hell were you doing doubting Derrick Henry, okay? I mean, rule number 1 of fantasy football, you don't doubt Derrick Henry. Actually, that's rules 2 and 3 as well. That's how important it is. I know that typically we don't want to draft these non-pass catching running backs that are playing on teams with bad defenses in the top 5, but the key word there was normally. What about Derrick Henry is normal in terms of NFL running back? I mean, the guy is a freak show. It should be illegal for someone to be that big and that fast and, frankly, that nice. I mean, he's one of the nicest players I've ever talked to ever. Just a real gem of a guy. Gave me a real hug one time. I mean, and that should be the point with Derrick Henry. We should embrace him in fantasy. Speaking of bad vibes, I mean, the Trey Sermon thing, these might be the worst vibes in the entire fantasy football season so far. And you know what, Rogue 58, I'm going to let you off the hook for this one, okay? It's not your fault, man. You could not have seen this coming. And I'm not just saying that because I was totally in on Trey Sermon too. I mean, let's revisit this for a second. Kyle Shanahan specifically targets Trey Sermon, trades up for Trey Sermon in the NFL draft. And then, oh, what do you know? He's running with the starters in preseason. We're getting good reports out of camp. All the things are good. And then week 1 hits, boom, Kyle Shanahan, he hates Trey Sermon. Elijah Mitchell's the guy. Raheem Mostert's out. Trey Sermon still can't get the ball unless Elijah Mitchell's hurt. I mean, that is unbelievable. Rogue 58 and everyone else out there, you couldn't have seen this coming. This is probably the biggest kick in the teeth I can ever remember in fantasy football ever. But you know what? Don't lose a wink of sleep off that one. That's not your fault. Now it's time for the worst tweet of the week, and I'm giving it to this response with AJ Brown and the oof meter here. How cute. Listen, you didn't get AJ Brown wrong if you drafted him this season, just because it hasn't worked out so far. I mean, comrade Gritty, you can't predict injuries. If you did, you'd be out there grifting people on the internet with your stupid little subscription service predicting injuries, but you're not doing that. No one's doing that, so give me a break here, okay? And listen, yeah, AJ Brown hasn't worked out so far this season like you expected, but the guy had a hamstring injury. Like I said, you can't predict that, and he had a literal case of the going into Monday Night Football. I mean, give me a break, okay? That is bizarre. You cannot predict that. So I think A.J. Brown, by the way, who just had his biggest game of the season, is going to have a great rest of 2021 as long as he avoids that Chipotle, okay? A.J. Brown, I'm sorry, Chipotle, tough scene, but you got to stay away from there because we need you. We need you. We need you to be great out there. All right, time for a little make your pick action here. Me and Tank. I gotta warn you, this first one is gross. Okay, Mark needs us to pick two of these players, these dusty group of wide receivers here in a 12-team PPR. And my God, Devontae Parker is like clearly the best guy of this group, and he ain't even playing today. So we got to pick two between Khalif Raymond, Russell Gage, and Tyler Johnson, like the special teams all-stars here. Tank, you take this first because I need your help here.
Man, I love how you like to just sprinkle this stuff that A.J. Brown had leaking out of him on me right now. Let's see. So no Devontae Parker. I feel like the Rams are going to be playing with a huge lead on Detroit, so probably Khalif Raymond. He's already shown the ability to score multiple touchdowns, so I think he's like number one. We expected a lot from Russell Gage. Haven't seen anything from him. I think Tyler Johnson may get a little bit more run since you don't have any AB or anything like that, but I think I got to go with Russell Gage in this one. So I think I'm going to go Khalif Raymond, Russell Gage. I think I like Atlanta's chances in the pass game. I already talked up Matty Ice. If it's not going to go to Pitts and Ridley, I guess it could go to Gage.
Yeah, I'm not playing Russell Gage. I think Tyler Johnson, though, is pretty interesting. You know, good player, coming out of college, decent route running chops, no Antonio Brown. Pretty good option. And actually, it's weird. The Rams actually allow this. They're tied for second most catches allowed to wide receivers this year. More short stuff, but maybe Khalif Raymond could break a play there. God, all right, enough of this. Get these guys off my screen, and let's talk about some real football players here. William wants us to pick between this group of wide receivers, some actual real players here. Jalen Waddle, DK Metcalf, Michael Pittman, and the guy that you're not going to say. So I guess between the first three options, between the first, God, this is like the worst thing that's ever happened to me. This is like the hardest thing I've ever had to deal with in my life. I've not had a very hard life. So Jalen Waddle, DK Metcalf, Michael Pittman, pick two of those three there, Tank.
If I got to pick two out of those three, I think I'm going with, we already know that the guy at the end, not the guy that, I see something blurry. I can't really tell what that is, but the other guy, he's playing in really bad way.
All right, we get it.
I think it's pretty obvious. We're gonna go with Jalen Waddle, and we're gonna go with DK Metcalf. I see Michael Pittman Jr., and then I'm trying to form a...
Do you need to borrow my glasses?
Yeah, the first two. I used to not be able to pronounce it. Now I just can't even see it. It's just like it doesn't exist. It's an invisible thing.
You know what? This is real tough to deal with. This is really tough to deal with. I will say though, on DK Metcalf, like Marshawn Lattimore is a tough corner to predict because he has these big games and he kind of disappears. Shuts down Mike Evans every single time. Other times, not so much. I feel like a primetime matchup with DK Metcalf is like the perfect opportunity for him to just go shut down a number one receiver. But I still think Metcalf is the safer pick over Michael Pittman in a really bad weather game. So let's that's enough. That's enough of this. That's enough of this. My feelings are hurt. I had to talk about all those bad receivers. Now I had to deal with Tank basically adjacent bullying me here. So let's go deal with some more viewer questions in the play calling segment.
All right, we are just moments away from kickoff. So let's get to as many social media questions as we can. And let's start with one from JD. JD has a question in PPR. Mecole Hardman, who by the way has run over 35 routes in back-to-back games, or Christian Kirk attached to that undefeated Arizona offense. Andy, what do you think?
I almost never recommend Mecole Hardman. I find him difficult to trust, right? There's like one or two throws a game where Patrick Mahomes is clearly expecting him to be somewhere other than where he is, but I think I would play him here. The targets are up, the routes are up, and again, that game should give us like a zillion points, right? Kansas City and Tennessee, nobody's stopping anybody in this thing. Everybody's banged up on the Chiefs side except for Hardman. I might regret this, but I'm going to go Hardman here over Christian Kirk.
All right, Tank, this next one is for you. It is from Thomas, and Thomas is debating two because of this Bimageddon. It's usually on lock for Tyler Lockett, but with Geno throwing the ball and the inclement weather, which you are experiencing. Oh, no, you're not. You're in San Francisco. Anyway, he wants to know if he should start Rashad Bateman over Lockett.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the weather's going on. I mean, the one thing I say is that if it's raining like this in San Francisco, I mean, you know, it's always raining in like Seattle, like always. So if the weather's anything like it is up there, how it is down here, then I would definitely start Rashad Bateman. I mean, Bateman had 6 targets in his first game back. We know that there's going to be no Sammy Watkins, and we know that Cincinnati offense is like formidable. I mean, they have some weapons out there, so I mean, they can score some points, but at the same time, I feel like we thought the Chargers would score some points too. But that being said, with it not being Russell in the moon ball going to Lockett, I feel like Bateman is the play.
Bateman is the play. All right, Minty. We are not going to go to you. In fact, we are having another question. Ooh, this one is messy, and this does involve Seattle. Matt, listen up. It's from Max. DJ Dallas, who has managed 4 carries in back-to-back games, but we know that Alex Collins is banged up, or Darrington Evans, who was just activated off IR yesterday. This is a tough scene. Which of these 2 guys would you recommend?
Why'd you have to phrase it like that? Which of these 2 would I recommend? I would recommend neither, Maxim. I would recommend neither. Why don't you just leave the running back spot open? Like, you couldn't get Devonta Freeman. This is the best you could do. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be too mean to you here, but it is what it is. I guess you go with DJ Dallas. You're not playing Darrington Evans. Like, he's not taking carries from Derrick Henry there in a potential close game. Forget that. So spin the old disc there with DJ Dallas. Stupid analogy that was.
Spin it with DJ Dallas. I think that was a DJ reference. Minty, have you seen any odd reverse line movement?
Well, yes, I have. 75% of bets are actually on Houston today. However, the line moved from Texans plus 14.5 all the way up to Texans plus 19.5. A lot of sharp bettors, a lot of sharp money on Arizona today. Another something weird, 80% of bets on the Patriots, but that line has not budged from Patriots -7. New England is the book's biggest liability today, so I would stay away from that game.
All right, lots of weirdness this week, from those last 2 questions to the Buymageddon to the injuries, and that is going to do it for this edition of Fantasy Football Live. Thank you for kicking off your Sunday with us. This conversation does not stop here, though. Matt and our friend Jared Quay will be back at 2:30 p.m. Eastern on Yahoo Sportsbook Live. You can check out our podcast, the Fantasy Football Forecast, and Mad Bets, our daily betting show, all on Yahoo throughout the week. And get your costumes ready. We'll be back here next Sunday at 11:30 a.m. Eastern, 8:30 a.m. Pacific for a Halloween morning edition of FFL. Good luck to all of your fantasy teams in Week 7, and we'll see you next week.